Bob Wankel covers the Phillies, crossingbroad.com, opening day for the Phillies. Of course, we are just one day away from that. And let's dive into the Phillies roster, some interesting stuff there. And obviously the outlook for this team as we've now seen them for a couple of weeks at summer camp and a couple of exhibition games and some inter squads and all the good stuff with Bob Wankel right now from crossingbroad.com. What's going on, Bobby?
Hey, guys. How we doing?
All is good, man. And I guess it's finally here. Baseball's here, and it's only apropos that one of its biggest stars would be knocked out on opening night with COVID, right?
Yeah, it kind of brings you back to reality a little bit here. We've talked about it when we were first getting off the ground with these plans that everything looks good on paper, and you can say, I really like this team in this division and have expectations across the board, but then something like this happens, and it just turns everything upside down, and it certainly illustrates the challenges moving forward. You know, when camps first opened, there were some bumps in the road, and then everything was relatively quiet. But then here we are, hours before the first game, and we get this news that Juan Soto is going to miss the game and you know, likely looking ahead, probably be out a week or two.
Unbelievable. Let's look at a couple of storylines leading into this season with the Phillies. JT Reamuto and that contract, and obviously the Mookie Betts contract yesterday. I think that was an eye-opener. Was it an eye-opener for Matt Klentak?
Yeah, so Matt Klentak actually was just asked about this. They met with both Joe Girardi and Matt Klentak, met with the media about an hour ago, and this came up, and he basically said that when he took a look at Mookie Betts' contract, 12-year deal, $365 million, he said that there was some creativity and concessions and collaboration, I tweeted out, that went into that contract, which kind of raised my eyebrows. I mean, to me, it just basically seems that Matt Klentak is saying it took some concessions on the part of the player to get to that deal, and if the Phillies are going to make a deal with JT Realmuto right now or in the next few days, that it's going to require that same type of creativity and concessions on the part of the player. The reality for me is that I don't think there's any reason for JT Realmuto to make any concessions at this point. Why not hit the open market, see what he can get, and if he still feels strongly about the Phillies and wants to be here, then they'll have an opportunity, I would imagine, to match it. But the Phillies have sort of lost their leverage in this thing, and if JT Realmuto wants to break records, I don't think he's going to be looking for a lot of creativity in order to do it.
Well, do you think at his age that someone will be willing to, based off of the whole COVID-19 and losing out on revenue, do you think someone will spend, say, $23 to $25 million for a guy at his age at his position?
I would say that I don't think 10 different teams are going to line up to do it, but all it takes is one. And do I think there's going to be a team out there that may be willing to step up because he is going to be the best free agent in this class now? Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. So the Phillies are kind of in a position here where they're playing roulette. I mean, yeah, could that offer not come in? Sure. And the Phillies could say, see, the way that we value you back on July 23rd was correct, and they do a deal that's more advantageous on the ownership and team side. But that is a big gamble to take, and the longer this thing goes on, and if he does enter the market, it really becomes a toss-up. And this team is kind of constructed in a way currently that it's designed to win in 2020, 2021, and you let one of your best players walk, not only does it hurt your chances on the field, but after what we've heard Bryce Harper say and the way that his teammates feel about him, I don't know what that does to the morale of the clubhouse moving forward beyond this year either.
I'm just in such a tough spot because I see both sides. It's like you gave up Sixto Sanchez. You want to make sure that you keep someone like JT Realmuto in the clubhouse because he is the best at his position. But at the same time, with the nature of that position at his age, it's just a very scary thing to think about $23 million per year for about 6 years. Like, I don't think this is an easy situation at all for Matt Klentak and John Middleton. I just wonder if the best way to do it at this point is to allow him to hit the free agency market. Say he's getting underwhelmed with a ton of offers. Say he's underwhelmed with $17, $18 million per year type deals, and then maybe the Phillies can understand what his market is and then go up to something more like 19 from there.
I can't tell you that's not a smart play. I mean, I think that there's a lot of logic behind that. I know that the fan base wants this done and sign JT, and it all sounds good and on the surface, but yes, I mean, there is a decent chance that the Phillies just gave in here, caved to his demands, they would be overpaying. And I do think that there is a little bit, I think you have to hesitate a little bit about paying a guy age 33, age 34 years behind the plate. It is a consideration. And I know that everybody talks about, well, there's likely going to be a DH in the National League moving beyond this season. That's all fine and well, but is the production that JT Reamuto is going to give you at DH as a 34, 35-year-old really in line with a $20 million plus contract? And the answer to that question, to me, I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think that is really fiscally responsible. That being said, he's the best player at that position. There is a ton of pressure to sign him, and it's interesting that you brought up the idea about what they gave up in terms of Sixto Sanchez. I actually had an opportunity to talk to Ruben Amaro Jr. today, and it was one of the things that I had asked him about. I said, do GMs a lot of times make these decisions in a vacuum, or do you think there is added pressure to do a deal in light of what came before, which is that trade with the Marlins where they gave up Alfaro and Sanchez? And he said, if you're doing your job correctly, and I'm paraphrasing this, but if you're doing your job correctly, sometimes there's going to be maybe a correlation, but you really can't get sucked into that. You have to do what's best for the team with the decision that you have to make it that's in front of you. And so I think, though, people think there's this extra pressure on the Phillies to do this deal because of what they gave up, I don't get that that's the sense.
So, by the way, Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, and you can listen to that full interview with Ruben Amaro on the Crossed Up podcast, which you can find on many podcast platforms and crossingbroad.com, where he talks to him more about this Reamuto contract. Do you sense that if the Phillies, and I guess this is hard in a 60-game season and now with 16 teams, but if you're out of it, do they, think about moving him?
Oh, man, if the Phillies are out of it in light of this playoff expansion by the time the trade deadline rolls around in about a month from now, I would say that they would have to at least consider it, because that means this was an unmitigated disaster of a season for them. I mean, it's going to be very difficult with 8 teams out of each league now falling out of it. I know that the playoffs are tailored in a way that all second-place teams are going to make it, and then the remaining teams with the best records get in. I know there's some concern about the level of competition the Phillies have to play in the NL and AL East, but if they are out of it at that point, my goodness. Before the playoffs were expanded, I would tell you that it has to be something worth considering. I mean, only the Phillies and JT Reamuto really, truly know how far apart or how close they are in making a deal here. And if they know that they're worlds apart, if the Phillies, from a team building standpoint, didn't at least consider it prior to today, I think that would be foolish on their end. But that being said, I think the Phillies actually have a decent team here. I think that they're going to be in the race moving into the end of September, and I would be stunned if it came to that.
Okay, so we think they have a decent team. They set their opening day roster. Obviously, I would imagine that, maybe I'm wrong, that we would concur that this bullpen is a huge question mark after now seeing exhibitions, inner squads, and now the 30-man final roster. Some of these guys, you got to be wondering, what's their role and how did they get here?
It's so undefined. If you like certainty and you like a track record out of your bullpen, this Phillies bullpen is not for you. And when you evaluate this team offensively, it's easy to kind of see how it could all work out. I'm maybe a little bit more bullish on this rotation than others are. But, man, this bullpen, I just don't know. I mean, to answer your question, I don't know that the Phillies know. I've heard a lot in recent days that Joe Girardi, one of his greatest strengths is how he manages a bullpen, how he gets the best out of each of these guys. Same thing goes for Brian Price. And so if you want to be an optimist, I would tell you that there are some high-ceiling guys in this bullpen that if they're coached and utilized properly, maybe the Phillies are okay. But when I look at what they have out there right now, I don't think that there's defined roles for a lot of these guys beyond Hector Neris, and it's just a total crapshoot. They're going to rely on guys like Tommy Hunter in big situations to get key outs early in this season. He's one of the guys that you're supposed to feel like is an established reliever in this league that you're supposed to feel good about, and I don't know that you can do that right now. So when you look at some of their options out there, yeah, I mean, there are a ton of question marks, and if the Phillies can throw some darts and hit here, they may be in really good shape, but there's a possibility that this is the thing that dooms this team. And really, I think it's unfair to evaluate a front office in a pandemic-shortened year. There are a lot of variables that you could not prepare for. So if a team falls short of expectations, I think it's not necessarily fair to condemn the job of a front office, but when it comes to the bullpen for the Phillies, this was an obvious need going into what was the normal offseason, and it wasn't adequately addressed in my estimation. And it, to me, is somewhat indefensible, quite frankly. I don't understand what the tact was here, but it certainly, as the season starts, is a glaring weakness. And I know that Andy McPhail at the end of last season was quick to point out how they had the fourth best bullpen ERA in baseball down the stretch and all of that. But I do not foresee them replicating that type of success here.
Yeah, please don't bring up that Andy McPhail quote about how great they were. That is just unbelievable. But with this whole bullpen, I just – it bothers me because I can't justify letting someone go like Liriano for this mess.
Yeah, so, they have some intriguing options from the left side, but I'm with you. A guy like Austin Davis being on this opening day roster, to me, is one that really kind of makes me I'll be honest with you. I didn't have Austin Davis on this roster. I don't think he's one of the 16 best pitchers in the Phillies organization. But, yeah, I mean, when you look at a guy like Liriano, I don't know how much of that went into – and Matt Klentak said this was not a consideration, so if you want to take his word for it, but how much of the bullpen and maybe some of the bench building had to do with staying under the luxury tax. That became an issue here. The money got rearranged as the season was shortened, so that could have been a possibility. But, yes, I agree with you in that sense. But they do have, and I will say, there are some intriguing guys like Ramon Rosso, throwing the ball very well in summer camp. He's a guy that I like a little bit. Theoretically, you should have a bounce-back, fully healthy Adam Morgan from the left side. Alvarez did a nice job for them a year ago. But when you get down to some of these names and you're talking about Deolis Guerra and Trevor Kelly and Reggie McClain, like these are all just huge, huge question marks.
Bob Wankel crossing broad. Yeah, that bullpen seems to be a big question mark. And then the starting pitching, they dodged a little bit of a bullet, I guess, with Wheeler's wife helping them out there. So he'll pitch on Saturday. But they're going to go with Vince Velasquez, it seems, in that number 3 spot. I mean, is he their number 3 starter now?
I want to pause before I answer this. I need to collect my thoughts on Vince Velasquez. I've been all over the place with him. So I'll try to keep it short. I entered this offseason saying there's no way that he can possibly be back in this rotation. There's no way that the Phillies can fool themselves into thinking that he's a viable option again. It's infuriating. 99 career starts. He just hasn't shown enough. That being said, threw the ball very well over the past 3 weeks. He earned that job on merit. I think given what they have right now, Spencer Howard, when you talk about service time manipulation, why not? Let's see. He certainly outpitched Nick Pivetta. I will say that, and you can make an argument that he outpitched Jake Arrieta as well. So is Vince Velasquez the Phillies' 3rd best starting pitcher right now? Maybe. He certainly does have that potential when you look at how he implemented the changeup, when you look at how he implemented the cutter. I mean, these are real pitches. He didn't just do it against Alec Boehm when nobody was watching. He went up to New York and implemented those pitches with success against a very good lineup on Monday night. And I know that's an exhibition game. I know that the stakes weren't quite as high, but he does look like a somewhat different pitcher. Now, that being said, game starts for real on Sunday, or his first start is on Sunday. Let's see what his pacing looks like when there's guys on base. Let's see if he's afraid to use that cutter. Let's see if he trusts that changeup. And I think we can learn something about Vince Velasquez in this first start. And if he's successful, I don't think you can just simply write it off as, oh, it's the Marlins either. Vince Velasquez faced the Miami Marlins 5 times last year. He didn't average 5 innings in those starts, and he had an ERA over 7. So it's not like he carved up this lineup as 2019 Vince Velasquez. So I think there's an opportunity to see some growth, and to me, it may be the single most important development of this weekend.
I'm not confident in Arrieta. You mentioned him. He got rocked a little bit early in that inter-squad game, although how much stock can you put in that? What are we supposed to expect out of Arrieta this year?
He threw the ball better as that start went on. He really struggled in the first inning yesterday. Granted, it was 98 degrees and I think 98% humidity, but I believe he allowed 7 of the first 8 batters he faced to reach, which is obviously no good. But as the start went on, he started to get weak contact. Sinker started working, started to hit his spots, and he really did get stronger as the start progressed. So overall, I would actually say it was an encouraging performance. I believe he threw 88 pitches yesterday total. I would not be shocked, given that he's in a contract year, given that you're only asking to get 12 starts out of him, that he gives you something that's in line with an average number 3 major league starter this year. I'm not telling you that he's going to revert back to his 2015 form. I'm not telling you that he's going to be in Cy Young consideration. Bottom line is he still doesn't miss enough bats, and that's going to be a little bit of a problem, even with the Phillies' improved defense. But I do think that he can give you quality innings still. And so that's sort of where I'm at with Jake Arrieta right now.
Bob, what's the deal with Eflin? I know they didn't really give us a fifth starter yet, other than he was going to throw, today and see if he could get through 60 pitches?
Yes, so he did throw a simulated game today. Joe Girardi called it great, his word, not mine. And if he feels
do you
fine
not concur?
tomorrow, I don't know. We were not able to see that. So if he emerges from that simulated game fine, he will start on Tuesday. He will make that fifth start, and that'll be against the Yankees. So if he can't go, I would imagine that would be Nick Pivetta. It's interesting that you bring up Zach Eflin. Everyone talks about Spencer Howard, and if he comes up, and the Phillies have been so high and said the right things about this kid, if he does get into this rotation, it's obviously going to be because of injury. Or if you're asking me who's the guy that would have to exit the rotation for Spencer Howard to enter it, I would tell you that the most likely candidate, believe it or not, right now, in my estimation, is Zach Eflin. There's just always an injury concern with him. It just seems like there's always something. And if he's not sharp at the start here, first 2 or 3 times through the rotation, it may open the door for Spencer Howard sometime in mid-August.
So are you saying that there's a possibility he does come up and he won't be in the starting rotation at all?
I think the Phillies need to get him work. And they have to make a determination of, does that work need to happen at the major league level? If everyone pitches lights out here and they don't have to insert this kid into a condensed season down the stretch, then I guess they won't do it. But when you have to get work, does that mean throwing 6-7 innings in taxi squad games out in Lehigh?
Yeah.
Or does that mean, coming in as a middle reliever and maybe working yourself up to a 7th inning guy? And when you consider all of the questions in the Phillies bullpen, I would say that remains a possibility, though in a perfect world, he'd be making starts for you, I think.
Very interesting there with Howard. I mean, because when they sent him down, where is he set up to pitch? I mean, is there some conspiracy theories on where he pitched last and when he would be available to come up and not lose the service time?
No, I just think it's a situation that's truly fluid. Sometimes teams will, kind of poo-poo a scenario or situation and they know what they want to do with the kid. I think they know that he will be up here at some point. I would expect him up here at some point by mid-August. I really would, just based on what people are talking about. I mean, you heard Bryce Harper go to bat for him on Twitch on Saturday, I guess it was, or Friday night, saying that there's a problem if he's not up here against the Yankees. There's something wrong. I don't know if the Phillies are going to be that aggressive with him, but I do believe that the plan is to get him up here at some point. But the situation is really going to, I think, dictate how he's utilized. I mean, so many different things can happen. Like we opened the call with Juan Soto going out. I mean, you're always just one test away from your plans being completely flipped upside down. So I think that does remain a fluid situation.
Let's get to what matters. Phil Gosselin. Why are we waiting to sign him until tomorrow?
So it's a procedural thing. They got to get him onto the 40-man. It takes a day to do it. So he will be added. Phil Gosselin will be the 6th Phillies infielder. And I know there were a lot of jokes coming out from the writers that were down there covering camp, but I mean, he hit everything over the last 10 days. I mean, if you really did his batting average, he probably hit like 700, I would say, over the last 10 days. He earned that role. I know that he's not an exciting name. It's not somebody that everyone's going to freak out about, but if you're doing these jobs on merit and these really truly work camp battles over the past 3 weeks, Phil Gosselin earned a spot.
Absolutely. Now, are you surprised that they went with Neil Walker maybe over Harrison, even though Harrison went in and asked for the release, correct?
Yeah, I think that was a situation that was a little bit twofold. Harrison, I suspect, had better opportunities elsewhere. Some of the financial components of that may have played a role as well. I have to tell you, and I think that I am one of few people that felt like this, but I was not overly impressed with Josh Harrison at the plate in this camp. And I don't mean to drop a hot take here or anything like that. I think that there was a role for him on this team. I loved him in terms of a veteran presence. I thought he was a good fit that way. He could play multiple positions for you. But his bat looks slow to me. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I think that Walker outplayed Harrison. So I personally was not super surprised at that specific development.
Let me get your thoughts on this real quick. And obviously, I think you brought this up with Ruben Amaro. I'm interested to hear what he said. I mean, the impact of Joe Girardi on this team, what does it mean?
Yeah, I think he basically said that he has a great temperament. The fact that he's done it, that he has experience was the big thing that Ruben had highlighted. Says it still matters in this game. And I think what he was saying, and I'll try to stretch this out another step, is that the lack of experience the past few seasons, the lack of stability the past few seasons, this is a complete 180. And I think that the sense is that stability, that idea that this guy's done it before, that he has a World Series ring as a manager, it's going to create a little bit of a different culture. And I think it extends beyond Joe Girardi to both the pitching coach and the hitting coach as well, and Brian Price and Joe Dillon. I think the whole package is going to be very significant. And, you know, a lot of the players have talked about this, and it's easy for a player to say, yeah, the new coaches are great, they're really going to help us. But I truly believe there's a genuine sense by pretty much all observers, both in the locker room and outside of it, that Joe Girardi's presence is going to be an upgrade and have a tangible benefit for this team this season.
Well, we'll find out starting tomorrow. Baseball is finally here, and the Phillies are back in action tomorrow against the Marlins. It'll be Nola, Wheeler, and Velasquez. They'll be your first three that you get a chance to see, and we'll see what the opening day lineup is. I don't even know we have that revealed yet, right? We don't know who's playing center field.
We do not. No, he wouldn't give us that today. He was very diplomatic about that. Very, they'll both play a lot, is what he said.
All right, Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, and of course you can check Bob's podcast out, Crossed Up. That's over at Crossing Broad and all your podcast platforms. He just spoke with Ruben Amaro Jr., who is going to be a part of the analyst team for NBC Philadelphia. And Bob, we appreciate your time as always, pal. We'll talk soon.
Hey, appreciate you guys.